One of two things is eventually going to happen to you in this hobby. Either you will get sick and tired of manually filling your tank with RODI water every single day, or you'll leave town for a few days. Either one of these scenarios means it's time for an ATO. Auto top-off units, or ATOs for short, are some sort of combination of float valves, sensors, and pumps. Their job is to sense low water in your tank due to daily evaporation and flip on a small pump to refill your tank with RODI water. Just a quick reminder for all of you beginners out there, salt doesn't evaporate, only the water evaporates. So when refilling your tank every day because of evaporation, be sure to only put in RODI water and not salt water. There are various methods that ATOs use to detect the water level in your tank. The most simple is by using a float valve, gravity fed. As the water level goes down, the valve opens and gravity feeds RODI water into your tank. As that water level goes up, it pushes the valve up and it mechanically closes, stopping the water flow. The second way some ATOs detect the water level is using a float switch or multiple float switches. These mechanical floating devices trigger an on-off for the small pump. So whereas float valves are gravity fed and electricity free, float switches require electricity and a pump. Simple ATO units may only use one float switch, but fancier units out there may use more than one for extra redundancy. And lastly, you have optical sensors. With no moving mechanical parts, these optical eyes can detect the water level. While these may sound fancy and foolproof, optical sensors can also fail. Okay, so technically you don't need an ATO, but I have yet to meet a hobbyist who has been in this hobby for more than a year who has not eventually gotten one. Because the only other option is to manually fill your tank with RODI water every single day. And trust me, I've done it. It gets old really fast. I have personally used 7 different types of ATOs and more than one has failed on me. To maximize the lifespan of your ATO, you're going to want to make sure that you get the right one for your system. The first consideration is where it's going to go. It will need to fit in the same compartment as your return pump, so do some measurements and make sure it's going to fit. Then you'll need to make sure the ATO can actually function in that location. For example, a Reef Breeder's EXO auto top-off unit can only function through clear glass. So if you intend to put this on a black rear filtration chamber or in a colored sump, it's not going to work because the sensor actually has to read the water level through the glass. Lastly, consider the size of the pump. ATO pumps are typically tiny, and many don't have much head pressure, meaning they can't pump water vertically, sometimes over 3 feet. Also, some have built-in fail-safes such as timers. For example, if you put an undersized ATO unit into an oversized tank, it may take a really long time for that small pump to fill the water height to the correct level. And before that can happen, the fail-safe timer may click in, shutting the pump off, meaning the RODI water from the ATO unit will never be able to catch up to the evaporation in your tank. And lastly, you want to decide between float switches and optical sensors or some sort of combination of the two. Let me just be super honest with you. I have had several optical sensors fail on me, but I have personally never had a float switch fail. I'm not saying that float switches can't and won't fail. I've just never had one fail. So I don't want you to think that a float switch is bad and an optical sensor is good. They both have their pros and cons. By far, the safest route possible will be to get an option that has the most redundancy, usually some sort of combination of optical sensors and float switches. I just counted and I currently own 10 ATOs, but I have only had one of those since the beginning, 2013, with the original pump that has never failed on me. I am, of course, talking about the Tunes Osmolator. I'm not gonna lie to you, it's pricey, but I feel confident in saying this. That's because it's the best out there. With both a highly accurate optical sensor and a backup float valve, the smart controller will alert you if there's a problem, with an LED display and an optional alarm. It also comes with a built-in fail-safe, which will detect when your pump is running dry and shut it off. I also have the Tunes Osmolator Nano here, which is designed for tanks under 50 gallons. With only a single float switch, it does lack the redundancy of its bigger brother. For those of you that either don't have the space or aren't quite ready to shell out that much money, I would recommend the Reef Breeder's Prism. I currently own 4 of them, and I actually like them better than their more expensive counterpart, the Reef Breeder's EXO ATO. The all-in-one sensor actually contains 3 separate infrared sensors. One to turn the pump on, one to turn it off, and a third for extra redundancy in case the pump fails to turn off. I like these Prism ATOs, but certainly feel more confident when I'm away with the built-in redundancy and 8-year reliability that I've had with the Tunes Osmolator. To set up your auto top-off unit correctly, you'll need to select the correct compartment, a correctly sized reservoir, and the correct hose height. Choosing the right compartment is easy because there's only one correct choice. You have to place it in the same compartment that houses your return pump, because that is the only compartment in your tank that will have a variable water height. Choosing a correctly sized reservoir is more important than you think. If your reservoir is too small, you'll probably have to refill it every other day, which kind of defeats its purpose to begin with. While on the other hand, if it's too large and your ATO fails in the on position, it could either overflow your entire tank and flood your home, or it could dilute your saltwater to the point where you experience livestock death. I think somewhere near 10% is the magic number. That means if you have a 50-gallon tank, go ahead and install a 5-gallon reservoir. A 100-gallon tank, go ahead and install a 10-gallon reservoir. At 10% of your overall water volume, if your ATO fails in the on position, your tank will likely be able to hold the excess water. Not only that, but if you run your tank at 35 parts per thousand salinity, a dilution of only 10% lowers that to 31.5, which will probably be okay for your livestock in the short term. And lastly, the flexible tubing for the ATO needs to be placed above the water height in the reservoir. If for some reason you place that flexible tubing below the water height in the reservoir, when that pump turns off, the siphon will continue and gravity will keep filling your tank with RODI water. An ATO is made of mechanical and electrical parts, so it has a lifespan. If it fails and you're at home, you can probably catch it before disaster strikes. But what if you're away? There are 3 easy steps you can take to minimize the risk. Number 1, reduce tank evaporation. Number 2, build in redundancy. And number 3, connect your RODI unit directly to your reservoir. Randy and Ryan will teach you how to do all of those things. And as always, everyone, thanks for watching. Happy reefing, be well. We'll see you next time.